Morning, guys. Hey, finally back to the 72 Kawasaki H2 Mach IV 750. I had promised I was going to make some videos on this as I went through the restoration process, but I failed. Sorry about that, guys. But if you go back about 8 months or so, you'll see what this bike looked like when I got it. It was a true barn find. Missing parts, didn't run, damage, crash damage, airbox missing, chambers, all kinds of stuff. But, it was a worthy candidate for restoration. And my buddy up in Michigan picked it up for me. And I've been working on it pretty diligently the last 8 months. Before I go any further and forget, a big shout out to Brian Dwight at BD Cycles. This is the second bike he's painted for me and did an absolutely spectacular job once again. He's pretty amazing, guys. I've been doing these bikes for a long time. I've had a number of painters over the years, and some of them did some great work. Don't get me wrong, but Brian does just a phenomenal job. So shout out to Brian. Anyway, here we are. This bike, I never say they're done, even though this is figuratively done. There's still a few things I would like to correct that aren't right. For example, these early H2s did not come with the two-step dust seal on the forks. I searched for 8 months and I could not find NOS ones, the original one-step dust seal. I even went to a company and had them made, and I've got those. Unfortunately, they don't grip the upper fork tube quite tight enough. So while they look right, they're not functionally correct. So I'll keep looking. And of course, I put modern tires on this one, just like my Z1, mainly because I intend to ride it. And at my age, safety's kind of important. Hence, I put the factory correct NOS dual disc front end on it. The right-hand disc isn't NOS, but the caliper is, and of course the all-important 5/8 master cylinder is NOS. So it stops way better than one disc, but certainly doesn't stop like a modern bike, as you guys know, but good enough for me. I'm happy, and I don't ride crazy anymore, so it works out pretty good. Another thing I want to do, and I'm doing soon, the boss on the Kickstarter is basically sloppy and worn out. I've re-chromed the rest of the Kickstarter, but I'm replacing that boss. That will happen shortly. It's just not up to standard, so we'll take care of that very soon. But overall, pretty happy with how things turned out. I I always talk about trying to do as corrective restoration as possible, because that's what I'm into. I like doing that. But guys, there's no such thing as a perfect restoration. Somebody will say that. Well, I have to bite my tongue when people do that, because I've been around these for decades. I've been around these since they were new. I've restored lots of triples, restored lots of Kawasaki's F6, F7s, F9s, S2 triples, tons of H1s. H1's my specialty. And I've seen the best. I've seen them at Barber. I've seen them at Amelia Island. I've seen them everywhere. And for a whole host of reasons, there's no such thing as a perfect restoration. I wish there was. That'd be pretty cool. Perfect to me would be an all-original in-the-crate bike. Rick Brett had at least one of those, and that was pretty cool. Anyway, this is my work. This is what I like to do, and I like to get it as correct as possible. Look at those clamps. That green on those clamps. That's a tough one to find and get correct. But stuff like that I like to do and spend my time hunting down. So anyway, I just wanted to make this. I've ridden it. I've put a few miles on it now. Yes, the horn's up correctly. Let's see, how many miles do we have on it now? A whole 12 miles. So, to me, you have to run them. You have to put them through the paces. You know, when you rebuild a transmission and shim it, and you know, rebuild the crank and bore it, and you know, redo the squish band and rebuild the carbs and everything. You got to put a few miles on it anyway to know if it's going to work correctly. Sometimes stuff doesn't come out quite the way you'd hoped, and you know, it takes a few shakedown miles. Ideally, that'd be more like 100, because things pop up that you didn't expect, and you need to know. But anyway, this is where we stand right now. It runs good, but like a 72 H2, like I remember back in the day, it bucks. And that's not uncommon. They do that. They hunt and they buck. I've restored GT 750 Suzukis, and they're smooth as silk. This is crazy. This is fast. This is not smooth as silk. So one correction, one thing you can do, and I may do this if I really do decide to ride it, and I'm thinking I will, is I'm sure you guys that are into the triples know about Ivan and his jet kits. Well, this is one of the first bikes he actually started out doing. Spent 2 years designing jets and needles to largely get rid of that bucking. I don't know if you can ever completely get rid of it, but I know it does help. I've used his kits on H1s, and they are pretty good. So we probably will, when he gets moved back to New York, we'll probably give him a ring and say, Ivan, send me down a kit, and see if we can make this thing run a little better. Not that it doesn't run. It screams. It wants to rev, and it's a great bike, great motor, but it runs just like they did. So it can be better. Well, with that, I'm going to start it and let you hear it and see how she sounds. Hold on one sec. Okay, here you go, guys. Thanks for watching.